What's up, everybody? Welcome to the KSR Happy Hour presented by Country Boy Brewing. My name is Tyler Thompson, and I will be your host today. Nice. Zack showing off our beautiful sponsor's product. Drew Franklin is out in Scottsdale, Arizona at the Beck Gala. So it's going to be me, Nick Roush, and Zack Geoghegan leading you through today's happy hour. And it's a newsy one so far. So before we get into the news, let's talk a little bit more about Country Boy Brewing because they're awesome. Sadly, I still cannot get their product here in Nashville. I feel like I've gone to every single store in Nashville looking for it, but I'm going to make a trip to the state line soon to get some because it looks delicious. So Zack is showing off the Country Light, which is their newest product. It's brewed.
Should I go shotgun one?
Yeah, do it. It's only got 95 calories and 1.8 carbs.
It is light, that's for sure. It's very crisp and refreshing. What was the third word?
Crushable?
Fresh, crisp, refreshing, something like that. It's very good.
Delightful, wonderful,
delightful.
all the above.
Premium.
So it looks absolutely awesome. Nick, is it a little too soon for you to be looking at a beer?
A little, although I might need some hair of the dog. It's still chaos right now at the Roush house. Like the laundry, there's no groceries, there's just sad kids, and but they're not as sad as I am, because my fun time is over. The big 2-week build-up for Derby, it came and went, so we're now picking up the pieces, getting our lives back together. But like you said before we went on, Tyler, it was kind of nice. Like you step right back in and boom, things are happening. We got stuff to discuss.
I know. I was fully expecting today to just be like a normal kind of slow, dreary Monday. Not a ton happening when I was looking at the rundown this morning. But bam, we started with a football commitment, and then we got a basketball commitment. So let's start with the basketball commitment because I think that kind of came out of nowhere, at least for me on my radar. Reese Potter, the former Lexington Catholic star who played at Miami of Ohio for 2 seasons, is coming home to be a Wildcat. I was kind of stunned by this. It kind of came out of nowhere. There was an online rumor kind of floating around in the past 12 hours. And then Matt tweeted some stuff all the way from Scottsdale that he was hearing it might happen. And now we have a 13th player on the roster. This is wild. So, Zack, I'm going to throw it to you as our resident basketball Benny. Tell us all about Reese Potter.
Yeah, it seems like this came together within like 24 hours or something. I felt like Reese had been in the portal since like March 24th, I think is what it was. So he'd been in the portal for almost 6 weeks at this point. But I will give, I think it was Big Blue Bud. I'll give him a shout out. He kind of had it first on Twitter last night, and then Jacob Polachek found out that there was real connections this morning, and then boom, just kind of all came together at the last second there. But yeah, Reese Potter, I watched this kid play a bunch when he was at Lexington Catholic. I was trying to see if I'd tweeted about him before, and I had one tweet about Reese Potter, and it was from 2022 when Lexington Catholic played a game against. Can anyone guess?
It would be Reed Shepherd,
Boom.
North Laurel.
Oh,
Reed Shepherd and North Laurel, and I think Lexington Catholic won that game. When Reese was there, they were really good. I think maybe his junior year, they played Malachi and Great Crossing and won and made it to the Sweet 16. I think their senior, they ended up losing before going to the Sweet 16, something like that. Maybe lost to Great Crossing as well. So this kid's been around for a long time. Obviously, a Lexington native, 7'1" center. He probably weighs as much as I do right now, which is that'll be another thing to address later, is his actual physicality and how it'll translate. But you've got a guy with 2 years of Division I experience playing in Miami, Ohio with the Red Hawks. He's put up decent numbers as kind of a backup off the bench there for them. He actually played alongside another Kentucky native, Evan Ipsaro, yes, who was kind of like Reed Shepherd's unofficial rival when they were both seniors, because he was at Covington Catholic, Reed was at North Laurel, and they met probably 3 or 4 times that year. Covington Catholic was really good. So there's multiple Kentucky connections there with Reese and his time at Miami, but Pope saw an opportunity to add a 13th guy who's a 7-footer and kind of be their practice player. I think Roush, you said it perfectly in our group chat. He's like just a good player to have in practice, another body to have, especially with Quayton still going through all of his rehab, and who knows whenever that's going to be end up, he'll be back healthy and whenever. So having another big guy out there who can actually play and be viable and not tank your team if you have to put him out there in kind of a last case scenario, it's very interesting to see him come on board. So we'll see if he ends up being a redshirt guy or whatever they end up doing. But I guess it's not bad when you can add a 7-footer who shot 39% or something from 3 in his 2 seasons at Miami, kind of on a lower volume. But as the highlights are going by here, there's not many highlights on backup centers for Miami, Ohio, if you're on YouTube, but the guy definitely looks like he's got a quick trigger on his three. That was one of the first things I noticed in this exact 1.5 minute video that I watched earlier. Got a quick trigger on his three, plays a lot of the top from the top of the key. Hit like some nice backdoor cuts. So I think you can kind of imagine what Pope is thinking here. Like, okay, I've got a 7-footer who's got some playmaking chops, averaged over assist a game last year. Playmaking chops, can shoot from three. We'll see how it all translates to the SEC and if he's got the size and the skill inside to be able to compete. But you're not going to find any better 13th man in the country than a 7-footer in your own backyard too. So we'll take the addition.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny sometimes just to think about this time last year, we were still in the middle of like core roster building. Oh, see, cheers to that. Cheers to Reese. And now we're talking about adding the perfect 13th man to the roster. So it's a good position to be in. And, Pope teased this last week. He did that really long, in-depth interview with John Rothstein and said he was going to add maybe 1 or 2 more players to the roster. So
scouring the planet.
And really he just had to look in Lexington. Yeah, look in his own backyard. So funny how that works. And, of course, if the House settlement goes through, teams will be allowed to have up to 15 scholarship players. So there will be no more walk-ons. Previously, it was 12 scholarship players, 3 walk-ons. So with this news now, Kentucky has 13 presumably scholarship players on the roster. Like Zack said, we'll see if this guy redshirts or not. But at the least, they've got somebody else to go up and practice until Jaden Quaitons comes back. So, Roush, what was your initial reaction when you heard that Reese Potter is a Wildcat?
You mentioned 2 things that haven't gotten a lot of run. One of which is the House settlement ever going to settle? I thought we were doing this like 3 weeks ago. Yeah. So that still being out there is weird to me. But I will say we talked a lot on the football side of things about how much it would hurt their practice without walk-ons just because of the lack of good reps. And I know that people don't get all in a fuss whenever you lose walk-ons to the basketball program, but you need those players because there's a good chance you're going to be down 2 at any given time. How many times was Kentucky 3 or 4 down this year? You still need to be able to practice. And unlike the women's game where you have 5 or 6 guys who are just kind of rotating in as practice players, you can't really do that. So I thought that part was the biggest thing for me. And then 215 pounds.
He is tiny.
I mean,
7'1".
So I was the ultimate guy back in the day where I couldn't put on weight for nothing, right? Like it was like, gosh, Roush, eat something, and my mother was like, dude, you're eating us out of house and home. What are you talking about? You're eating so much food. But I can at least somewhat relate to being the person who can't put on weight. Not anymore. That's no longer a struggle anymore. But I do wonder at what point will he hit that? All right, we're leveling out, right? Because if you add 20 pounds, that doesn't sound like much. Like that, you wouldn't even notice it if a 7'1" guy gained 20 pounds. So adding that, I think, will be crucial. And then, as much as I don't think that, like, we got so accustomed to be like red shirts don't exist in college basketball, this is one where it would make sense. We saw Louisville do it with Ali Khalifa a year ago. Wouldn't be surprised if that's the case here because the way you're looking at the roster moving forward at the center position is this year it's BG and JQ, with Malachi sort of rotating in. And next year, maybe that's the case next year where they're queuing it up where you don't have to go find a centerpiece next year. I still think they probably will. But that's having that second option already there on campus, especially one who can do the things you want by stretching the floor out. I don't have the splits exactly in front of me, but I think he was like 31 of 60. From 3, something similar to that, which
I can tell you right now if you want.
Because that's
22 of 60.
Okay, I mean, still that's 33%. I'm bad at math, but I think that's close enough. So like, yeah, that's a solid, a decent start, and he's a hometown kid. So there we go. Not too shabby for a guy that you had no idea was going to be on the roster, and you probably won't notice on the bench next year.
Well, and if you're like me and you hear all these numbers, hear what he did in his first 2 years at Miami, it kind of helps to know what other schools were going after him, kind of play the name game that way. And so according to Matt, North Carolina, Washington, Louisville, and UConn were among the schools that reached out. And Washington made Potter a substantial offer. Those are not my words. So those are Matt's sources. So, and that Hubert Davis supposedly made getting Potter a priority for his program. So, I mean, we're talking about him as a 13th player depth piece, but there has to be some upside there if both Washington and UNC are like actually legitimately going after him. So it'll be interesting. It's always fun to start a week with the Kentucky basketball edition, and we're losing one Kentucky boy, Travis Perry, to Ole Miss, but we've gained one in Reese Potter. So, and if you love Harry Potter, you can get a Kentucky basketball jersey with Potter on the back.
Ooh,
That's both worlds.
we should do the Patrick Tolles Cat's Paws cover.
Yeah, bring it back, run it back. I love that. So we've talked about that. I'm sure we'll be breaking that down for days to come on KSR. We'll have more videos and stuff about Reese Potter. But I want to get back to Nick's misery because you look like you had so much fun at the Kentucky Derby. And as much fun as you look like you had, you look so sad today.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about the Derby. Obviously, Sovereignty won. I don't want to step on your toes as KSR's resident handicapper, so I'll just turn it over to you.
Well, I hope I got some people some winning tickets this weekend. We didn't make buku bucks, but we did win enough to where we didn't lose a lot, right? I think it was -$7 on the online account. Now, that's not the only account we're playing, of course, but -$7, it could be worse. And the weather could have been worse, too. I know if you looked at the track and you saw the people out there, it looked kind of miserable. I've been to some rainy, miserable derbies, and that one actually wasn't that bad. I mean, you got a little wet, but you never felt wet. If that makes sense at all. My wife, she was the real MVP. She made a mega poncho. She cut one poncho in half and taped it to another. So she was nice and dry the whole time. And then she made sure to remind me dozens of times that she wasn't the one who stayed up late for 2 weeks in a row watching horse racing videos. But she still won the Derby, and I did not. She had Sovereignty as her Derby winner. Won a little bit there, but they came down the backstretch and the final home stretch, and it's neck and neck between Sovereignty and Journalism. And I thought Journalism was going to be the one that kicked it in and was going to take it home. But in fact, it was Sovereignty who got Bill Mott his first Derby winner. The first one for Godolphin, which is the biggest owner in horse racing. It's the Sheikhs from over in Saudi Arabia, 5-time owners of the year. So they know what they're doing over there. They've got it figured out. But I think my biggest, I don't know if takeaway is the right word, but like people should go to the infield on Friday at the Oaks. That was outstanding. So much fun. Because like I know if you saw the video I had of the people running the porta potties and you see the crowds in the pot, like
I'm glad that's still a thing. I thought that had gone away because I remember that from when I used to go to the Derby infield when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So like it's
is that a thing? Is that a tradition?
Kicking. Oh yeah.
It's really big at the Preakness, and usually there's people throwing like beer cans at them and stuff. And
sure.
That's like the old sort of infield, but like Friday, my friends were out there and they had their kids and they're playing football. Like it's just this huge green area. We had so much room to work around with. And then when the storm came in, and boy, that storm.
I think I sent Steven this picture of you all from the TV broadcast huddled under your tarp.
Yes. It was. It's also one of those things too where I feel like my dad out there being an amateur weatherman where I'm like, look at the clouds breaking up. It's not even going to hit us. We're going to be fine. And they're all telling us to evacuate, but we can't go in the tents. So we're like, okay, well, we'll just stay out here. We'll be fine. We got tarps. That's nothing. And boy, it was something. That wind, it came a whomping and a whirling. And I was holding on to the tarp for dear life over my head. And I felt like I was doing like a planks workout or a bridges where my like back and shoulders are burning, just like, come on. I mean, it was Lieutenant Dan and the Crow's Nest screaming like, bring it on. And if you lost the tarp for a second, it was smacking you in the face. Some of our friends, I mean, it was.
Oh, there it is. I love it.
Yeah. We were buried under there. Some of them were bold enough to walk around and be fine, but the cooler survived, the tarp survived. Some folks, since it was so lightly trafficked, they just hung out in the porta potties for a little bit. That would have been rough if one of them would have blown away. But that was one heck of a storm we had to ride out, and we were rewarded with beautiful weather afterwards, and the whole part of the infield to ourselves. So
That's awesome.
that was a great time. If you ever want to get a taste of it, the Friday before that was pretty fun. And my Brad Cox horse, Good Cheer, she was the favorite, but she won. And afterwards, Luis Saez was doing the interview near us. And as soon as he got off, he was firing us up. That was great. That was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I mean, I thought of you when Brad Cox horse won, and then I wanted to bet on the Brad Cox horse in the Derby, but I can't figure out how to bet on horses in Tennessee. I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if you can. So I just bet at our little Derby party thing, and I lost, but that's okay.
If he would have came in third, we would have had the try, but Beza got up. There are like a lot of little itty bitty things. So I warned you all about Torpedo Anna being vulnerable.
You were right, man. Dead last.
So Kenny McPeak went from having the Oaks Derby winner to she got a little roughed up, but like she's just kind of on the way down, I think, unfortunately. She loses, and then Mystic Dan ran Saturday at Oaklawn, and then he lost that race too. So it was a tough weekend for old Kenny McPeak. But if you missed any of the Churchill Downs undercard, just watch the end of the Churchill Downs Stakes on Saturday. I'll have it up on the website later tonight. But we had a 5-horse photo with a dead heat for second and nose. I mean, it was one of those where you're just like, what just happened? You know, and everybody's kind of running around, and you're looking at the screens, you're at your phone, and who won? Honestly, that's the most fun part about being there, is the looking around at other people and asking who won, and then seeing somebody who did win and they're going nuts. I mean, that was a blast, an absolute blast.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I had so much fun looking at all the pictures of the UK people there. I sent some to Steven. Mark Pope was there. He was in the jockey's room with Jeff Ruby, and like the picture's really odd. It's like they're having some kind of interaction, and it's almost
Look
like
at Oscar.
caption this. Yeah, Oscar Sheboy was there
his
rocking
cowboy
an
hat.
awesome cowboy hat.
Imagine seeing Oscar Sheboy on horseback in a cowboy hat.
That'd be
That's
pretty-
terrifying.
Horse.
Yeah, and then I love Trent Noah and his girlfriend. So if you look at that middle photo, I don't know if we can zoom in on the bag he has in his hand, but he wins like boyfriend of the year because he's bringing a bag for his girlfriend. It's got her hairbrush in it, an extra pair of shoes. Like, absolutely love it.
They came prepared. They were
They
smart.
did. I mean, he's a Kentucky boy. He knows. And
I
then,
saw
go ahead.
Someone tweeted, look at the Eastern Kentucky boy wearing Louis Vuittons.
It's pretty awesome.
It is kind of funny, yeah.
Yeah, and then Mikhail McLean is there, Alvin Brooks. Yeah, it's
Do
great
we
to see them
think
all.
that jockey is standing on something there?
Gotta be, right?
It
Yeah.
has to be.
That's
I
a
mean,
6-foot jockey.
We always talk about how Pope seems either taller or shorter than you would think in photos, because he's a solid 6'10".
Yeah.
But in some photos, it's like he doesn't look like it there. But yeah, I think he's much taller than the jockey.
One note about Pope's outfit: where's the Letterman?
Oh.
Yeah, it's
Come on,
like it's
Coach.
weird. It's kind of odd to see him without it now. It feels like
Where's
it's
your
just,
back cape? Yeah,
it's attached to him. Yeah, so I loved all the outfits. Mikhail McLean, shout out to him because he got a big payday. Yeah, news broke last week that he got a big raise. He has a new 2-year contract. So this past season, he had a 1-year deal. He was making $150,000 plus performance bonuses. This upcoming season, he's going to make $400,000 in base salary.
Nice.
And the year after that, $425,000. So he got paid. Pope has said it a million times that he's a rising star in the business. He's a star in the making. He's a beautiful star. He's everything. So it was cool to see him kind of, get the money he deserves. And I'm sure he and his wife, significant other, had just an awesome day on the town, it looks like. So,
well, if Reese Potter makes all SEC in a couple of years, Mikhail McLean better be tripling that pay raise.
yeah, exactly. I mean, he's kind of the guy who works with the big guys. So he's got
Amari
yet
and
another
Brandon,
guy in there.
Amari and Brandon were big on pumping him up throughout the whole year. So
Yeah,
is my
he's
mic
got-
sounding good too, by the way? I know.
Yeah,
You're
me
good.
too.
You were kind of doing like the JT, back in the day on the radio show where his mic would be like real close and then it would be like far back.
Oh, well, I'm also just like a moving talker. Like I have to do something with my hands and things. So
It's fair enough.
I'll try and sit still.
You're all good. It's all good. Just keep drinking the country light and everything will taste good. Everything will be good. There you go. It's beautiful. It's crisp. It's refreshing. How would Mark Pope cut an ad for a beer, even though he's Mormon and he doesn't drink?
Beautiful beer.
Let's see. Other Derby notes I had. Mike Tirico had to step away from the NBC broadcast. Did you all see that?
Well, actually,
he has a nut allergy.
I was listening to the radio show this morning, and Matt mentioned, he was like, I felt like something was off with Tirico initially, and I didn't think about it until Matt said that. And I was like, I remember thinking like something sounds wrong with Tirico's voice when he's talking, and then all of a sudden he was gone, and I didn't really realize it all until they talked about it later. But yeah, I did kind of notice that when he was initially on there. It was odd.
Yeah, so I watched the Today Show every morning, but I watched it this morning, and they had him on to talk about it. He has a nut allergy, and he said he's usually extremely careful if he goes to a restaurant or whatever, tells the server he has a nut allergy. But he was at Churchill Downs just kind of like snacking, kind of like they didn't have time to eat a big meal before the 6 hours of television commenced or whatever they did. And he said he wasn't just really paying attention to what he was eating. And
just
clearly
grab a bag of nuts and here we go.
So excited about the Derby. I'm just gonna eat this bag of nuts. But yeah, he's fine now, and he's good to go for the Preakness and all that.
When it comes to like fancy finger foods too, I never know what's on them or what is that. Like it's just like, sure, I'll try it. So I could easily see how something could be cooked in like a nut oil or something like that. But it was just kind of weird. I do like the guy that they brought, and I hate that I don't know his name, but he hosts all their other horse racing stuff, and he's good. I mean, they've got an army of people, which that's the, like, for me, a lot of it is, it's fun, and like I was there a lot and I was doing stuff for the site, but like the people who this is their every day to day, like Caitlin Free, I talked to her briefly on the backside. She does the trackside reporting for like in-house for Churchill Downs. And like the amount of hours that they log going in and leading into the Derby, the security guards. I mean, I worked Andy Frayne security back in the day, and it's great. Like if you can get that paycheck for a week, but you were there nonstop, 24/7. So shout out to all you people who made it through Derby week, who put in the long hours, because it ain't easy. It ain't easy.
Well, also the TV people. Like I think about our friend Maggie Davis.
People.
Like they get there so early, and you always joke about how Ryan Lemon hates the Derby now, and he says it on the show. It's because they have to get there so early, and they stay there all day long. And just I've heard so many horror stories about it. Yeah, it's fun. It's really cool to be there. You get to dress up and all that, but it's a lot of work. So mad respect to them. Yeah, especially in the rain. And that was my other question about the Derby. You kind of talked about it earlier, Nick, but at what point did you just accept the rain as part of your body? Like, like you went from I'm wet to just this is me now. I am going to be wet until the end of time. I'm going to have fun.
Well, that's what I mean. It actually wasn't that wet. Like I at least came prepared. I'm not stupid. There was a couple people with us that I'm like, I don't know if that poncho is going to hold up for you there, Honcho. But yeah, I had a rain jacket on and jeans, and that's what was my biggest worry is like if my jeans get wet, I might be cooked. But the feet stayed dry. I stayed mostly dry. So the Justify year, they broke a record with 3 inches of rain. That was one where you were just like, I'm Osmosis Jones. Like I'm just in the water. There's no getting around it. But we actually, you might get a wet butt every now and then, but stayed pretty dry. It could have been much worse. But shout out to all the people who, like I didn't have to deal with worried about equipment. Like I was able to keep my phone in a bag if need be. Those clear bags, like the one Trent Noah had that zip, that was clutch, kept everything dry. So all in all, we did a pretty nice job of staying dry. I hope nobody else out there, stepped in a puddle of mud and then we're done. Like we were able to survive, although I don't know if I'm going to be able to get all the mud out of my pants. There's a lot of mud on there. That might be caked on for a bit.
Is it like going to the beach? You can never get rid of all the sand afterwards?
Yeah, very similar. But my kid, he like sat in Play-Doh or something. So, I'm not the only one. I'm just like a toddler getting myself messy out at the Kentucky Derby.
That sounds about right. So let's see. We talked about the Kentucky Wildcats at the Derby. Will Levis, Wandale Robinson were there. It was good to see Will. He's still on the Tennessee Titans roster.
Still.
Guy Fieri was there.
Guy Fieri. Dude, there
Bam.
was a picture of Guy Fieri, Governor Bashir, and there was somebody else really random. I was like, this has got to be the most random photo ever taken. Livy Dunn was there at the Oaks. did she do something controversial? I mean, I know she's Livy Dunn, so she's just headline city, but
she was just awkward in the Riders Up, which I think her and Simone, they were both fine enough, but that's just you almost need a legitimate carnival barker to do Riders Up because it's a very awkward thing to say. You just kind of got to give the old ballpark Riders Up, because I mean,
I don't think Livy.
They need you to do it.
I would come out with a big old hat, like I'm the person at the front of the marching band, because that's kind of what it calls for. Remember how bad Martha Stewart was?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So
she didn't have a ton of energy. You need to have the big energy for it.
Yeah. So I think that was just a tough sell. But I did not do any personal celebrity sightseeing other than I ran into WDRB's Jude Redfield when he was leaving the infield. So but I mean, it's Jude Redfield, right? He's as big as it gets.
Sure.
Apparently so. I'm gonna let our group chat or our YouTube chat chime in. We've got people chiming in. Nobody, who that is their username, it's not just me calling them a nobody, said, have we confirmed the culprit that slammed Ryan in the mud puddle? And that I don't think they ever shared his name. I know they had a Facebook profile of the guy, so I don't think they wanted to put him on blast, which is way nicer. If it were me, I would be like, put him on blast. Remy, my dog, is agreeing with me. You can hear him in the background. So the mystery continues perhaps for another year. I'm sure this time next year we'll be talking about the same thing. We'll just be seeking justice. Nobody agrees he needs to be canceled, and Libby forgot her line. I think it's Livy, but yeah. And they try to remember, just go shoot from the hip, let it rip. There was one guy too who was. It was a very funny clip where he was trying to interview people as they were leaving the Oaks. He's like, we're all leaving as winners, right? And the dude just went, nerd. I mean,
I saw that one. Yeah. That was good.
He really got him. I mean, that's the equivalent.
He left him stunned too. He was like, what?
It's the equivalent of getting slammed in the mud puddle. I mean, he basically verbally did it.
Hopefully it will not be raining at the Woodford Legends Invitational Golf Tournament. Stephen, if you could pull that ad up, it would be lovely. This third annual tournament showcases the talents of some of the biggest names in the history of the LPGA Tour, alongside the top female amateur golfers from the state of Kentucky. It's this unique two-woman team event takes place Saturday and Sunday, June 7th through 8th, and it's a very family-friendly event, so bring your family on out. It's at the Woodford Club in Versailles. They got some of the biggest names in the history of golf, including Jane. I'm going to totally butcher these names, so apologies to these awesome, awesome women in advance. Jane Blaylock, who has made 299 consecutive cuts on the LPGA Tour. So for reference, Tiger Woods, his record of PGA Tour cuts was 142. So that's pretty good. We got Trish Johnson, Laura Davies are the only women to capture both the U.S. Senior Women's Open and the LPGA Legends Championship. They'll be there. And best of all, this is an event that gives back. The title charity is KVC Kentucky, which provides behavioral health care, substance use treatment, crisis intervention, and family strengthening services to children, adults, and families across 81 counties in Kentucky. That's a lot. So again, that is the Woodford Legends Invitational third annual tournament. It's June 7th through 18th at the Woodford Club in Versailles. So
let's get some good weather for it too.
Yeah,
I feel
need it.
Every time we have some sort of golf tournament, whether it's the PGA or they would have the tournament out at Keene, there's always some bad weather. So let's get some good weather for one. You bring kids out there, have a good time.
And I'm sure you can find some Country Boy Brewing there, even though it's a family-friendly event. So
how
are you doing on yours, Zach?
I'm about halfway done here.
Nice. Well, we're well over halfway through the show, even though I still have 2 pages of notes to get to. So.
Over prepare and underperform. I think that's the saying, right?
I think it is. So let's start with in this book, apparently. The other big Kentucky basketball headline of the weekend was Travis Perry committing to Ole Miss. He will no longer be a Wildcat. He will be a Rebel Black Bear Land Shark, whatever their mascot
Black
name
Bear?
is now.
Is that one of their mascots?
They were Black Bear for a while, yeah.
I know the Land Shark thing. I didn't realize a Black Bear.
Well, the Land Shark thing took off because Black Bear was such a bad mascot.
Okay.
Land Shark's a really bad one, too.
And at least it's unique.
Yeah, they should have gone with the Admiral Akbars. That would have been great. So I don't know if you all remember they held that contest, and that was
Yeah.
my favorite submission. So Travis Perry playing for Chris Beard. I don't think any of us are necessarily surprised because that's kind of been, I mean, they recruited him out of high school, and every chance Chris Beard got to talk about Travis Perry, he just went on and on and on about how much he loved him. But I guess the late buzz was Vanderbilt. So it is a little bit of a surprise in that it totally flipped back to Ole Miss. So, Zach, give us the rundown. Travis Perry is a Rebel. What's it going to be like?
It will be weird because Kentucky played in Oxford this year, so that means they'll be coming to Rupp Arena this coming season. So we will see Travis Perry wearing the pink and blue, or what the hell are their away colors? I guess pink and or like baby blue or something like that.
They do love baby blue.
He's going to be coming into Lexington and as the on the other team, and I think Ole Miss makes sense because, like you said, Chris Beard was just straight up openly tampering with him, essentially, like in post-game press conferences in the NCAA tournament. He was kind of the first team that popped up when he initially went in the portal. Definitely sounds like Vanderbilt and Maryland were kind of right there as well. I have not necessarily scooped, but I was told that Vanderbilt was kind of like the leader until the very end when Ole Miss just kind of came in and swooped in and, probably gave him more money in a sense and just kind of stole him at the last second. That's kind of the understanding I have on this is I guess Chris Beard wanted him, waited until the last second to really make his final pitch. And then when he did, it was too much to turn down. So I'm just happy that Perry is going to like an actual real school and doesn't have to go down a level to a mid-major or something and then just kind of have to hear it from the Kentucky fans that claim they're Kentucky fans but don't really want to cheer for guys like that. So I'm happy that he gets to at least prove himself at a high major again and going to Ole Miss. Like they kind of have playing time for him, I think, as well going into next season. So I don't know if he'll be the starter or not, but he's definitely going to play. He's going to be on the floor. He's going to have to guard Jalen Lowe at some points, probably next season. So that'll all be fun to see. From a Kentucky perspective, I'm excited to see Travis Perry on the other side of defense because I think Kentucky will be able to expose him a little bit. But on the other end of the floor, I do not want to see Travis Perry come into Rupp Arena and hit 3 threes. I think that would be kind of tough to handle, especially if Ole Miss comes in and wins or something like that. But in general, I'm happy for Travis. I think he deserves to be at this level. I really wish he would have just stayed at UK and ran it out from there, but I completely understand why he would want to go and get himself maybe a little more pay raise, more playing time, and get himself on the floor right away. So I see a world where Travis Perry is a very good basketball player sooner rather than later in the SEC. Just wish he was here.
I know. Like you said, you can't fault him for going somewhere for more playing time, and one would assume more NIL money and opportunities. It is going to be weird. I don't like that he's going to be elsewhere in the SEC, but at the same time, I don't really consider Ole Miss like a rival or anything. It doesn't upset me as much as if he had gone to Tennessee or to Alabama or to Auburn. I think oh gosh, Arkansas would have been the worst. But I think it's interesting that two of the schools that kind of recruited him the most out of the portal, Maryland and Ole Miss, their coaches have reputations as like defensive-minded coaches. Yeah. And as much as I love Travis, that's not really what he was known for. But they can help him maybe turn that around. I mean, if anybody's going to teach him how to be a defensive lockdown defender, if that's even possible, it could be Chris Beard. So I'll be interested to see.
Well, you mentioned the Tennessee thing, Tyler, and I think for especially a certain generation, you always worry about the next Chris Lofton, but I don't think that's Reed's ceiling. Reed has always felt to me like a Riley McBee or a Dusty Hanna's. Name the white guy who's the 7th or 8th man for a couple years, but then ends up being a starter as a senior and is a real pain in the ass. That always felt like Travis's sort of ceiling to me. And honestly, I think he could have been well on that way to his path at Kentucky if we didn't live in the transfer portal era. Like if this was any other time, he probably is still in a similar role where he comes off the bench, but then by his junior year, 3rd year, okay, he's playing some more minutes, he's in some more threes. Senior year, he's a starter, and he's liable to go for 20 every 4 games or so. That always just felt like the ceiling for me. So it fit my mental picture. Tyler, you remember the kid with the giant shorts that was like 5'5" for Ole Miss in like 2002. I want to say his name was like, and I always forget his last name. Robertson, maybe Josh Robertson. He had like 6 threes against Kentucky in 2002, and they beat us down there at the Tad Pad. But I feel like that's sort of Travis's ceiling. And you know what? It's fine with me as long as it doesn't happen against Kentucky. But that's the biggest storyline all of us. He's going to come to Kentucky this year. So we'll get to see him back at Rupp. And, you know, there's going to be a lot of apprehensive, nervous Kentucky fans going into that game, just hoping they don't get snake bit by one of the former players.
Especially you don't want an Arkansas 2.0 situation either where like a Calipari thing.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll say about Travis is sometimes scouting and all that, like you can know what a guy's good at and whatnot. Sometimes it just comes down to how much does this guy want it and how hard does he work? And Travis Perry was probably the hardest worker on that entire team last season as the freshman there, like lived in the gym type guy. That's kind of always been his like MO since he was like a freshman at Lyon County was the kid just outworks everyone. That's why he was able to pretty much run like 10 miles every game when he was playing at Lyon County being triple teamed because that was the only way he could survive was by running around because he's just not physically gifted enough to be a guy that can bully his way in for points. So I think his game's just going to naturally progress over time, and he's going to work hard enough to get himself to the point where he's a good basketball player. So it won't be shocking at all to see him do well. It'll just be annoying.
Yeah, well, we'll be cheering him on from afar, except for the one time that he plays us. So good luck to Travis. I know that Zach really wants to talk about the NBA playoffs, so I'm going to skip ahead to we'll run through a few quick things. Let's see. Kobe Bryant and Otega Oweh were among the 75 players invited to the NBA Draft Combine, which takes place May 11th through 18th. In every mock draft I've seen, Otega's not on it. So he's still testing the waters right now. I think the big board I saw from Jonathan Givony, like last week, he was maybe like 75 or something. So he's well outside of the territory. However, he does well at the combine. Maybe his decision is a little more difficult. I believe the withdrawal date is like the 28th or the 30th of May. So
28th.
we're at least going to have to wait until the end of the combine probably before we hear a decision from him. And even then, I'm sure he'll take a little bit longer. So a player that we thought might get invited to the draft combine, but wasn't invited was Amari Williams. He was invited to the G League Elite Camp, which takes place right before the draft combine, also in Chicago. Another Kentucky Wildcat who got invited to that, Jalen Lowe, which I think was a little surprising too. I don't know if most Kentucky fans know that he's testing the waters right now.
No,
I think that
I kind of forgot about it until because I think it was initially announced when he went into the portal that he was also going to test the draft waters, but then it just kind of got lost in the fold of everything when he actually committed and all that. I mean, it would be Jalen Lowe would have to start playing. He'd probably have to have the best 3 weeks of basketball of his entire life to get himself in a position to get drafted. So I don't think there's much of a worry there at all. Like he's not even on any of these top 100 big boards or anything like that. So I think Jalen Lowe, you're not too worried.
He's going through it now for next year.
Yes.
That's what a lot of these guys do.
Right. And that's something I think that's really good for Kentucky fans to keep in mind with, Otega, with, Jalen Lowe. These guys are getting feedback on how to improve their game. If they're that far out of range, then just they're doing their due diligence. And I think under Calipari, we would all get really nervous when players would test the waters, but they were usually ranked way higher on the draft boards. So they had actual bigger decisions to make. So I'm personally not that worried about Otega staying in the draft or anything. I think he's going to come back to Kentucky, but that's why the system is there. They get to go back, hear from scouts, work out for teams, find out what they need to improve. And I think it's smart for them to do it. And Amari, he has a chance to make it to the draft combine. There's a certain number of players, if they perform well enough at the G League Elite Camp, they are invited to do the draft combine. So maybe that's something that'll happen for him. I think he was kind of in the tail end of the second round of the last big board I saw. He was like 58 or 59. So there's a chance for him to improve his stock. I mean, if anybody had used his fifth year of eligibility or whatever it was to their advantage more than Amari Williams, I'd like to see it. I mean, he kind of showed at Kentucky that he can do it all. So I'll be rooting for him. And then one more piece of basketball news before we head to the playoffs, Kentucky basketball news, that is. We finally learned how to say the Croatian big man's name. So
yeah, I had to pull it up as well just to make sure I was saying it right.
Yeah, this morning they announced, and I'm going to give it a shot, Andrea Jelavic.
Andrea Jelavic. There we go.
For 3.
We actually have the pronunciation guide, so we can practice it.
And we don't have to wonder, like 3 weeks from now, is it weird that they haven't announced this kid signing yet? So I'm just glad we. Yeah, because that you knew that was going to be popping on KS board before too long.
Oh yeah.
So
well, it was already weird that they hadn't announced it. You know, he was kind of at least a week after the rest of the guys. So glad that it's confirmed. Glad that it's out there. We got a beautiful quote from Mark Pope, which, interesting enough, did not include the word beautiful. He said, Andrea is a really skilled, athletic, mobile veteran player who's been playing at a high level for the last 2 years. He's been mentored through the development program at Mega, which is one of the best development centers for great players in Europe. Andrea has a really unique combination of size, athleticism, and skill that will translate seamlessly into our system. And then this is my favorite part of the quote. When we did our Zoom, you could see the emotion on his face of how much Kentucky means to him. And then he cannot wait to wear a Kentucky jersey. So
really, Mark?
I know. I wonder, like, how much can you tell from a Zoom? But I mean, hey, it sounds like
sounds
he really
good
wants
to me.
be here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
I think Yelovich is going to be a great addition. Just watching his tape and everything, you know, he's not playing in some NBA. He's not even playing like a Euro League type situation. It's a top 10 league, the Adriatic League is, but 2 years of playing against grown men. He'll be 21 later this month as well. So you're getting a guy with a bunch of experience. The defensive end is kind of something that stuck out to me when Brandon and I were doing our big Zoom action front court breakdown. Shout out to Zoom action. It's on YouTube right now.
Yeah,
blowing up actually right now. We released the episode less than 24 hours after Kentucky added another front court player. That's just kind of how it goes. We sat on that video for a couple days, and then that's how it happens. But, you know, that's perfectly fine. So luckily, Reese probably will.
Coming soon.
Yeah, and if Reese ends up being a guy that we think will play, we'll do another video for him as well. So, but yes, very excited to see Yelovich come in. I think there's a chance he ends up being a potential, like, the starter by the end of the season. So I'm very excited for what the front court's looking like.
That reminds me of the post I wrote a few weeks back. Kentucky's probably not getting any more football portal players. And then the next post is Kentucky reaches out to football portal player for visit. Now, at least I was right for 2 weeks where they had hosted a couple of visitors, but didn't get any commitments until Elijah Brown committed this morning.
Hey, this morning.
Yeah, started his career at Bama, redshirted, went to FAU, visited over the weekend and committed. He's a blocking tight end, so I can't really sex it up.
Out of the group.
He has one catch for 22 yards in 2 years of college football. So
yeah,
22 yards per catch is pretty good.
22 yards per catch is pretty good, but they got another body. They need bodies in there because they run a lot of 12 personnel. So they just needed the guys. The fourth that they had, Michael Skinner, he's a good receiver, but you couldn't ask him to come in as a true freshman and be a legitimate blocking threat. They would have had one guy get hurt. They would have been in trouble. So just, okay, you got another body, and let's move forward. They seemingly really tried to get a receiver, but it just whiffed every single time. I don't, you know.
Get the kid that you knew about.
It's one of those things, too, where it's like, do you want to pay top dollar for somebody who's not worth it? And they had 2 kids they got last year that they probably paid more than they wanted to who didn't sniff playing time. So they probably thought, you know what, we'd rather just go into it shorthanded than do it at all. So, but at least this one, he'll be a part of the rotation in some capacity.
Sounds good to me, and I'm sure that Kentucky fans will ask, are we going to throw it more to the tight ends? But this guy's a blocking tight end. So.
Yes. Throw it to Willie.
Throw it to Willie Rodriguez.
Big Willie Rodriguez. But other than that, they're outside blockers.
All right. Well, the next topic is my favorite because I haven't watched a ton of NBA playoffs. I know Nick Roush hasn't watched a ton of NBA playoffs. Mm-hmm. And if there's someone who can get Nick Roush into the NBA playoffs, it's Zack Geoghegan.
Yeah.
So, Zach, give us, like, if you are watching this at home, one, thank you. Cheers to you with Kentucky Boy, Country Brewing. Tell me, if you haven't watched any NBA playoff games yet, what are the main storylines? What will Kentucky fans be interested in? Give us the guide.
Well, let's see. Main Kentucky storylines. There's a very big series that starts tonight. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder taking on Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets. I need to group Cason Wallace in there with the Thunder as well, because Cason Wallace is having, he's sneakily already one of the best defenders in the league. That's probably not much of a surprise to hear just from what he did at Kentucky, but he is the guy. The Thunder have 6 or 7 all defensive level backcourt players, but Cason Wallace has been awesome. He's been doing a great job of kind of helping relieve some of that defensive pressure from Shai, who He's probably going to end up winning MVP, first Kentucky player ever to win the NBA MVP. That's pretty cool. But I think that's a really big storyline to watch. Probably the one that a lot of national people will be paying attention to is how does Karl Anthony Towns do against the Boston Celtics? They're probably going to go at him every single time in the pick and roll on defense. Cat has been pretty up and down throughout the first round of that series, or when they played the Pistons. He had like a couple of really good games, a couple of 10-point games. He can't have anything less than a 15-point game against the Celtics, or they're going to get swept. So they need Cat to have a really big game. And this will be Cat's like kind of moment to really announce himself and be like, okay, I truly am, I'm the self-proclaimed best big man shooter of all time. Well, this is like his opportunity to actually go out and prove it, because he's going to have a nice matchup with Kristaps Porzingis that people are going to be keeping an eye on. They'll probably put Al Horford on him too. They're going to put everybody on defense on Cat too, and just kind of dare him to like make plays and not let Jalen Brunson foul bait his way into 45 points on 25 free throw attempts. So I'm very interested to see how Cat responds to all that and how he handles it all, because he's been great this season. He's going to make All-NBA, probably All-NBA third team. I think that'll be his first All-NBA team. He's had a few All-Stars, but so he's really had a great regular season. The transition to the Knicks has been awesome. But yeah, this is going to be a very big series for him, just in the public eye of like, okay, how good really is Karl Anthony Towns? Is he the guy that he might maybe think he is, and we all might want him to be, or is he just kind of a guy who's like a James Harden who just kind of disappears in the playoffs when you really need him the most? So that's going to be a very interesting talking point as well. We're not going to talk about my Cavaliers from game one.
No. We need to talk.
The entire everything is going to shit. Sorry, everything's going to hell at the literal worst possible time. You've got the Pacers came out and made 23s. I hope Brandon Ramsey's watching this right now, so I can say, keep your mouth shut, Brandon Ramsey, because the Cavs are going to come back and win this one. He's a big Pacers guy.
He wanted to say so much more. It was funny.
Yeah, I caught myself there. I had already said my one.
You didn't catch yourself the first time.
Yeah, caught myself the second time. But yes, Darius Garland's big toe is apparently broken now. You got Evan Mobley got a tweaked ankle. DeAndre Hunter sprained his thumb yesterday too. The Pacers hit 52% of their threes. Like everything that could have gone wrong in game one yesterday at home went wrong. So I'm just going to throw that one out. Cavs are still going to come back and win this series. But, God, that was frustrating to watch last night. Julius Randle, though. Big series here for Julius Randle. He probably had the best playoff series of his entire career. He was a guy who was, like, shooting 35% from the field through his first, like, 5 or 6 playoff series, whatever it was. And he was awesome for the Timberwolves. Him next to Anthony Edwards, who was kind of establishing himself as, like, the young the
next
brand of
thing.
Michael Jordan. Like he plays and does the exact same things as him. Obviously not as good, but yeah, he's been awesome. So he came in and like took it straight to Luka and LeBron. That was kind of crazy. Shout out to Jared Vanderbilt, not in the playoffs anymore, but did like some small stuff with the Lakers in that series as well. So yeah, there's a lot of those weird Kentucky storylines going there. I'll give Jamal Murray a mention as well, because the Nuggets are going to have playoff Jamal Murray score 30, probably average 30 points in this series to have a chance. So he had a 43-point game, I think, in game 5 of the last series, but was kind of like on the other one. So they're going to need a really big series from him, but he always shows up the big moments. So I'm trying to think of any other Kentucky guys I think I named them all. I know that you got Rob with the Timberwolves, but they don't play him at all.
I can't imagine he's playing. Yeah.
Same with Reed. They screwed Reed over this year just by being a good team drafting so high. And Isaiah Jackson's on the Pacers, but he tore his Achilles like 8 months ago, so he's still out. But yeah, I'm very excited for these conference semifinals. I think we've got a bunch of really good matchups. I don't know if any of them will go 7. Maybe the Cavs series might go 7 just because the Pacers stole that first one. But I think we're going to have some good games that maybe just get cut a little bit short, like towards, game 5 or 6 was just some of these teams were so damn good. Like the Thunder are really good. So
even though they're really good, I'm fascinated by the big narratives where you've got MVP versus Shea MVP, the Jokic versus Shea thing. That's going to be a huge
it will be the entire, and what'll happen is they'll announce Shea as the MVP like right before game 3, and then Jokic will come out and have a 45-point triple-double, and then the whole narratives will just go up from there. But Shea deserved MVP, I think. Like I won't argue with anyone that picks Jokic. If I had a ballot, no one cares, and I obviously don't, I would pick Shea. Shea was kind of bad, well, not bad, but his first 3 games against the Grizzlies, it didn't look like he really cared at all. And then in the 4th game, he really picked it up. So he's going to have to come in and play amazing MVP level from game one of that series, because the Nuggets are going to be I was poo-pooing on him for making that stupid coach firing, but sometimes it doesn't matter who the coach is if Nikola Jokic is on the floor. So a lot of fun storylines for the NBA. I don't know if there's any other like non-Kentucky ones that I can think of off the top of my head. People are just going to be really watching that Knicks series to see what happens with Karl and Jalen Brunson, because people love to hate on those guys. They're really easy to hate on. Jalen Brunson, especially with the foul baiting stuff. Shea does the same thing. So, but I'm not going to bring him up. That's not part of my narrative that I'm trying to share here as well. But yes, very excited for the playoffs. We've got a couple of good games on tonight. So.
Well, and I'm interested to see how Karl does. I've been a huge Karl Towns fan since he came to Kentucky, and he feels like he's got a weird reputation now. And he's entering the New York chapter, and I'd love for the first season in New York to go really well, because it's so hard to figure out what a casual NBA fan thinks of Karl Towns. Like, he's just kind of a different kind of guy. He's kind of dorky and nerdy, but then it's like he's trying to be the mean, tough New York guy, and it just comes across as weird and fake.
He's an oddball, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I'll be cheering for him all the same. So fast forwarding, we'll just look at the week ahead. The SEC softball tournament starts tomorrow. Had no idea. Athens, Georgia. Kentucky is, I think, the 13th seed. They play Georgia tomorrow at 1:00. You can watch on the SEC network. On the other diamond, things are not going well for the Kentucky baseball team.
No, really bad week.
This time last week on Happy Hour, we were talking about how well they were doing and how much like momentum they had. And since then, I feel like we KSR cursed.
Lost 4 straight.
I know they lost to Western Kentucky and then 3 straight to a bad Mississippi State team that doesn't even have a coach.
Not ideal. No.
Just by their coach. That's the craziest thing. I wonder if Minge was a little distracted, maybe.
Well, it's the classic.
So distracting.
Like I'm a firm believer in the firing the coach to get your team to play better, especially if they don't like the guy. It works. It worked against the Cats this weekend.
Yeah, I know. So they've got to turn it around. They do not have a midweek game this week. I think they host Oklahoma. So only 2 SEC series, 2 weekend series left. Oh, that makes sense then. So they've got Oklahoma this weekend at KPP, and then next weekend they go to Vanderbilt for the regular season finale. So that'll be big. They really need to turn it around. I was reading Daniel Hager's post today, and they're back on the NCAA tournament bubble, which feels insane to me. Like
they were thinking about hosting. There talks of hosting a super regional.
Yeah, how
about
quickly
6 days ago.
I know. Yeah. But anyway, hopefully they'll get it together. We have some questions from KS Board that we'll run through very quickly. We got to give KS Board a shout out. Our BFFs over on KS Board. Join KSR Plus if you haven't already. It's awesome. We're talking NBA playoffs. We're talking Kentucky basketball derby. Nick shared his derby picks and Oaks picks, and hopefully made people a ton of money. So we'll start with a fun question from the CFE of KSR, who says, I had an in-ground pool put in, and it opens for the first time later this week.
Oh, nice.
What cocktail should I make in bulk for the pool opening party? And first of all, you should get Country Boy Brews. I mean, that sounds perfect. Like
on ice. Yep. Yeah. Just have a big cooler, keep it open. I think for a large gathering, probably the easiest is just a margarita, right?
Like Cinco de Mayo today.
Exactly. Like it feels like a very timely thing, because I think it's difficult to make good stuff in bulk. But margarita is one of those that, like, all right, it's sitting here. Everybody loves a sip on one, especially as a change of pace from your Country Boy Lights. So yeah, I think that's the move I would go, because sometimes with some of those bulky ones, you get them maybe a little too sugary and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. So from the comments, we have George Liquor, which what a great name.
On brand.
Suggests sangria. So
that's
I like
exactly
sangria.
what I was going to say. I'm with him. I'm with him.
Too sweet for me.
It's
now you let
like,
the fruit soak in there as well, and then once you've had like 4 or 5, you dip your dirty hand in there and grab out a strawberry, and it's like a free shot right there. Pop one right in there.
You sound like
you can make
people
I've done that before. If that's what you're asking.
Dump the vodka in the watermelon. It's like it just makes for terrible watermelon.
Jam a straw in there. Oh,
yeah, it's awful.
My suggestion
I'd say sangria. You can make sangria not too sweet either. You can really doll it up and make it appropriate for everyone. So I love sangria, and that's a very refreshing, like sitting by the pool type drink as well. So I'm with George Liquor.
You've got the fruit floating around in it, which honestly freaks me out a little bit. I'm like a weird texture person. Like I don't like having like solid things in my drink. It's odd. So I would pick Bourbonade, which is my favorite mixed drink. You got bourbon, unsweet tea, lemonade, limeade. It's perfect. It's perfection. So some other recommendations: Jungle Juice, McDouble with pickles. Suggest filling the entire pool with margarita. That would get a little sticky and very expensive, I would think. So what to each your own.
Congrats to you though, getting the in-ground pool in just in time for summer. Like that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, what's the address?
That's when you know you've made it. Can we do a remote KSR Happy Hour there?
Are you in Lexington? I'll pop over.
So the next question is one that will probably divide our viewership. It comes from Finnego Ham. Buc-ee's, overrated or a national treasure? I'm going to start. Nick, you go first on this one.
Properly rated, because it's not a quick trip, and it can be a little chaotic, especially if you're trying to get kids in and out. Like I've never taken my kids to one, but I do enjoy it it's a fun little okay, it's a little bit longer of a stop than normal, but we don't have to be here all day. Maybe I'll get something a little kitschy on the way out, but it's Cracker Barrel for gas stations. So I think it's properly rated.
All right, Zach, what are your thoughts on Buc-ee's?
Well, what would we mean by overrated? Like, if someone called it the best gas station in the world, would that mean overrated? Is that kind of...
Yeah, and some might say that their food there is better than what you would get at, a food place, which...
Well, okay, so I've had a handful of different because everything there they make right there, and they just kind of reload it in their whatever. So I think last time I actually went with Steven and Jack. We went... I forget which trip it was. Maybe it was the SC tournament or Missouri, one of those. But we did make a stop there. Steven has actually gotten sick going to Buc-ee's.
I was going to say, was that the trip that he got sick on?
No, that was the trip before, and we made him go back anyways because I really wanted to go in there. And there's a viral trend of they have a Philly cheesesteak burrito that I kept seeing on TikTok. So I'm going to try it, and it was good. It was really good. So I've had their brisket sandwich that's awesome there. I've had chicken tenders that's really good. I think the food's awesome. It is just chaotic as hell if you're going in there in a busy time of the travel season or whatever. You're sardined in there trying to walk around. But so that's probably the only downside. But they got plenty of bathrooms. They got plenty of food and drink. It is a place where you go take your picture with the mascot and then buy a Buc-ee's shirt with a giant beaver on it. I like going into Buc-ee's. I don't want to do it every single time because it can kind of be overwhelming. But if we're hey, there's a Buc-ee's right there, we gotta go in there and grab a couple bites to eat, I'm fine with it. So I think Buc-ee's, like Nick said, it is properly rated, as by the little that you can see right there on the screen where I gave it a little thumbs up. Because I was yes, I think that's a good question because I'm not a national treasure. It is America personified in one area.
The most annoying thing, so I think you nailed it in that it has to be the right conditions, right?
Yeah.
Because if you go 95% of the time, it's too crowded. And then it's it's a really interesting, look into American culture because you walk in and people just lose all social norms. They'll just walk in. They may have a purpose when they go in, but they get distracted by 5 different things and they end up standing in the middle of the whole store, just looking around. You have to fight. It's like trying to get through a war zone, trying to get to the bathroom or to one of the food stations. I really want to love Buc-ee's, and I do if it's not busy and I don't have to wait a long time. But if I just want a typical going to the gas station, filling up the car, run into the bathroom, grabbing a drink, I'm going to go somewhere else because it just takes too long.
The one out in Richmond, about 30 minutes from here in Lexington, I've driven past it before where the line to get in is out to the highway.
Yep. Regularly.
Never in my life have I ever wanted to go to a gas station that much that I'd wait 30 minutes on the highway to go in there.
Yeah, so I like Buc-ee's sometimes. The butter popcorn, what's it called? The beaver nuggets are awesome. The caramel
I actually haven't had those.
Man, they're fantastic. They have one that's they have several different kinds, but they have one that's sea salted caramel. It's really, really good. I highly recommend.
I can't wait to make Steven go there again.
Poor Steven. They're just going to keep making you go back to Buc-ee's over and over and over.
He got some soda and some candy while he was there. So he found there's something for everybody. Something for everybody there.
Safe. Okay, so the next question from KS Board is from For Love of the Game, who asks, what is each of your all's favorite trip you've ever taken and what made it so fun? And this question is very timely because on Thursday, I fly to Ireland. Ooh. So that may end up being my favorite trip. I'm very, very excited about it. But up until now, I'd say any trip I've taken to Italy, I love. My husband and I went to Greece on our honeymoon. It was amazing. I mean, I'm just a big vacation person. Like, as excited as Nick got about the Derby last week, that's me on vacation. We're getting ready for vacation. So it'll be a lot of excited, hopefully not too many sleepless nights, but I'm ready. So, Zach, what's your favorite trip you've ever taken?
Ooh, well, first of all, shout out to For the Love of the Game. One of my favorite posters on KS Sport. Love his insight. Yeah, he's got he must be a coach. I think he's a coach or something like that. So he always knows ball. He's always talking ball. So I like him. My favorite trip I've ever taken, though, I mean, I've been on a bunch of different stuff. When I was younger, I kind of had I got privileged enough to be able to go to the Bahamas a couple times.
Nice.
So I did that and stayed at like the same resort where Willie Cauley-Stein was gambling with Drew Franklin. Different years, actually. Well, actually, it might have been around the same time that I think about it. I was in early high school, something like that. So
you were at the pool when the thing that happened?
I was over there just unaware of everything going on. So those I did that twice, and that's something the experience I had, I'll probably never be able to do again in my life unless I become rich beyond my wildest dreams. But so I really cherish those two trips. Those are fun. We had a family vacation spot growing up called Leland, Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula that we'd go to once a summer for like a week. That was kind of our one trip we would do every summer. So I really enjoyed doing that. It's turned into a big tourist town now, so it's not nearly as fun, and they've overrun it with, stores essentially. So it's not what it used to be, but those are my favorite trips. And then I love going on my KSR road trips with Steven and Jack. Those are a lot of fun. So we did a couple of those this past season, and I love doing those. I really do. Get to play basketball and talk ball with the boys and listen. Steven always finds some new, YouTube video from 16 years ago about, Vanderbilt's football team or something like that caught on and went viral. So I get to, learn those sorts of things on these trips as well. So yeah, I got a lot of things, but wanted to give them a shout out.
Absolutely.
I'm not as well traveled because of children. I'll just blame them. And like my wife's family lives out of town, so like that's a lot of our road trips is just hanging out with them for like an extra week in Ohio. But pre-kids, we did we called it our couples retreat because it was, I think, 6 of us. So we had a dozen people go to an all-inclusive in Mexico. And I love all-inclusives, but this one was great because it had a freshwater cenote within walking distance. So, like, we would just walk down to the beach, and then it's just crystal clear blue water. One day we got canoes and rented them and went back to, like, the source of it. And we're swinging off trees like we're freaking Tarzan, jumping into the water, this crystal blue water. It was beautiful. Love it. Love all-inclusives where you don't have to worry about anything. Yes. You still get to eat nice. So that one probably takes it for me. But for work related, I love SEC Media Days. Like it can
Where is it this year? Is it Atlanta?
It's Atlanta, which Atlanta is probably the worst place for it. But like just the people you run into there. I mean, it's basically just a work convention with folks you usually see on the internet. So it's just nice to mix it up with them a little bit and also see their other side.
Karaoke.
Oh yeah, karaoke or like Dari fist bumping Luckett at the stage, and I forgot who all went partying with us that night. That was a legendary night in Nashville a few years back. But a lot of good times. It's just the trips they can wear you out. So I hope you don't get too worn out. I hope Ireland is rejuvenating for you, Mrs. T.
I hope so. And, it'll be great. I feel like I'm practicing here at KS Happy Hour if they drink every time of the day over there. So I think it's a 6-hour time difference between Nashville and Dublin. So maybe I'll tune in on Monday if I'm still awake.
I hope they serve Country Boy in Ireland. They might not have it in Tennessee, but they need to have it in Ireland.
I mean, I can't get it in Nashville. Surely I can get it in Dublin and Galway, right? Yeah. All right. So let's see. 2 more questions. We'll run through them real quick. Also, both of them are from For the Love of the Game. What was the first big Kentucky basketball game you remember watching? I will go first because it is one that I think few Kentucky fans will ever forget. The 1992 game against Duke. I remember that distinctly. I was in my parents' den sitting on the floor when the shot happened and everybody got really, really quiet. And some people went outside and screamed a lot of things. And as a 8-year-old kid, 7-year-old kid, however old I was, that's a pretty hard one to forget. So yeah, that was the one that started it all for me. What about you, Nick?
98 championship. But I remember more so my parents, like my dad and all of his buddies celebrating that North Carolina lost. And I remember asking my mom, well, why are they happy? Like the Wildcats didn't play, and they're like, well, they really didn't want to play the other team. So instead, we got to play Utah. If you go through, just do yourself a favor, go through the Utah Big Blue history page. We basically ended all of Rick Majerus' best seasons at Utah in the 90s. It's crazy. It was like 5 years in a row where Kentucky knocked Utah out of the tournament.
Sad Rick Majerus was like one of my favorite things about my childhood. Just seeing him in his giant round form and his, red and white sweater looking so upset. It was lovely. But what about you, Zach? You're going to make us feel really old here. So I
was about to say my year starts with 2000 from what I remember.
I was going to guess UAB upset.
No, actually, Steven knows this one because he's asked me about it before. The first big Kentucky game that I vividly remember watching was the Patrick Sparks shot against Michigan State.
Oh God, yeah, that does make me feel old.
Was the Louisville game? Was that season where he hit the
same
free
year?
Throws? Same year. So actually, one of those two games, I remember those two pretty well. So I guess that was what 2005,
4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah. So 20 years ago, those are the first ones I remember. I remember that Patrick Sparks shot against Michigan State so well because that was my first time being like, this review is taking forever. Like, what are they doing
if
here? Like,
we only knew back then.
Yeah, exactly. If I knew what I know now, I'd be like, that was a quick review for NBA standards today. Like, you're reviewing everything. So, but I remember that one very well. I remember the call, the local call. I don't. It might be like just my mind playing tricks on me, but I feel like I remember the local call. I forget exactly what it was. He's like, he goes over and he gives someone a high five or whatever it was. So
Billy Packer. Yeah.
Billy Pack. Yeah. So I remember that might just be my mind, like replaying it from the YouTube replays I watched over the years, but remember that play very well. So that was a good time. That really sparked my Kentucky fandom was that game.
Billy Packer, man, that's not a good staple from my childhood. My dad hated Billy Packer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Easter Sunday, says Steven.
I love it. Of course, Steven knows that. Of course.
Yeah. There's a story for it. I remember it. Yeah.
All right. Final question. We'll get out of here. So this is also from For Love of the Game. It's a chill Friday night. Just you and your significant other. The weather's perfect. What meal are you prepping or ordering? What beer or cocktail are you drinking? And what's the first song on your playlist to kick off the relaxation? This is a great scenario here. Country Boy is going to be my drink, and I'm going with Cliff Jumper, which is their IPA. I really wish I had it with me right now because it is delicious. That's my favorite, the Country Boy brews. So it just, we'd be sitting on the front porch with our dog Remy, hanging out. Probably ordering in food, but if we're cooking, maybe some Italian food. First song on the playlist. Got to be something Tyler Childers. I love Tyler Childers. Charleston Girl Live is my favorite Tyler Childers song. So that's my pick. Zach, what about you?
I'm a big cheeseburger and fries guy. So I don't know if I would order that out or make it at home. If I had a grill, I would do it out there and make it all myself. So I'd love me a big cheeseburger and fries, and I would have a Country Boy Light.
Oh,
absolutely.
See, that's
right here with me.
Friday night.
That'd be a good cheeseburger beer.
Yeah. That's the best way to do it. I also am one of those, if it's a fish sandwich or a pizza, I got to have a cold Country Boy with me because it tastes better with it. And that's normally, it's a pizza Friday night for the most part. It's not really relaxing. It's just like, let's keep everybody keep them all contained.
In your life, it's like, breathe out.
Exactly.
Keep the children in.
They're being quiet for a little bit, but actually it's too quiet. What's going on? So speaking of, I think I just heard somebody screaming. So
why's the water moving and where am I?
Fair enough. We have made it a full happy hour. We went way over.
It took me that whole time to finish my beer.
Wow.
You should have had like 2 more in the span of that time. But
if I had 2 more beers, I'd fall asleep after this ended.
It's been a busy day. We ran through a lot of topics. Thanks as always to Country Boy for supporting us and making this show possible. And next week, Drew Franklin will be back and I will be gone. So I'll be in Ireland. Maybe I'll tune in if I can. We'll see what news next week brings. Hopefully we'll be getting ready for Kentucky basketball or baseball's resurgence. And surely Kentucky basketball won't have added another player, but you never know.
You never know.
Who knows?
All right. Until then, I'm Tyler. That's Zach, and that's Nick. And this was the KSR Happy Hour presented by Country Boy. Thanks for watching.